Yo, Gazmas here, coming with another Grand Archive video. I know it's been a while, but I have been busy with all the store champs, regionals, and practicing for FTC Ascent. But I'd like to get this video and maybe one more because I am traveling overseas before Ascent, so I'll be away from like a week and a half. So I'm going to try to get one more out, otherwise this might be my last video till I come back from the States. And it's just a build that I've been mucking around with in FTC. This list has been crafted by Hobo Crab in the Discord, or Dennis. Big Wind Rai player. Really liking this build. It's a fun build and it gets to use Rai Mana Weaver, where this removes 4 enlightenment counters to copy a spell. It can copy yours or your opponent. Has to be a mage spell though. So it's wind. We're playing GCR. We're not playing the Quicksilver Grail because it's not needed in this build. Crystal of Empowerment we are playing because Crystal of Empowerment gives the additional levels when you need them for Rai Mana Weaver, because we're not playing Stormseer, so we don't get those levels in banishment. Typh if we need to turn off our opponent, and then we're also playing new card Ventus, Staff of Zephyrs, and you tend to take this card out usually pretty early. So even before you go to Rai level 1, you kind of take this card out, or right after Rai level 1. This is kind of like something you're going to get out straight away, just so you can get all the benefit of Ventus. So Ventus is whenever you activate a wind element mage spell, you put a counter on it, and then you can remove a counter to put an alignment counter on your champion, or you can remove 3 refinement counters from Zephyr to suppress a target ally. So it has a lot of play. So the earlier you can get this out, you can build up refinement counters, the better it is. In terms of the actual build, you're going to see there's not a lot of arcane cards. Spell Shield, because it's a defensive card, and Arcane Blast is like one of your win cons. And the reason why you don't need like an Erratic Bolt is because with Rai Mana Weaver you can double an Arcane Blast. So you can essentially push 22 damage with 1 Arcane Blast, which is very good. But we'll go over the normal cards now. Scavenging Raccoon, probably my favorite card. I've been using this in all builds. I've actually been using this in the Rai Stormseer builds as well, to eat my own arcane cards to get additional levels. But this is a proactive card in some builds, but it's mainly in this build a defensive card. You eat your opponent's floating memory, so they can't level up, and you just really throw them off, or they have to burn a card. You really fuck up their math. Next card we've got is Dungeon Guide. So Dungeon Guide, every deck, I'm not going to go too much about what Dungeon Guide does, but in this deck you've got an additional ways to bounce it. So you can Dungeon Guide and Zephyr to get levels. So with Wind, you've just got essentially 8, 10, 12 Dungeon Guides with the amount of bounces you have in this. A card that I think is overrated, but one that I think makes Rai Mana Weaver playable, is a new card that we got from FTC, Develop Mana. Free cost, slow spell, just puts a level counter on your champion, but this level stays for the entirety of the game. I know some Sylvie builds are running it to help initiate Pride, but as Mana Weaver doesn't gain levels from banishment, this card is a good early play, so that when you do go to level 3, you actually level 5, level 6. So it's quite a good build. Period to Mana, because Period to Mana is great at putting enlightenment counters, and you need enlightenment counters to double spells. You can double any mage spell. They don't have to be arcane spells. So we've got a couple other ones that you can double, and you can really eke out some benefit. Zephyr's Assistant, as you can see, it puts in alignment counters on your champion, and you need a lot of chip damage in this. So cards like Zephyr Assistant, 1 damage. Raccoon puts 1 damage, Dungeon Guide 1 damage, and you kind of really want to get, if you're playing all heroes except Lorraine and the new Crux Merlin, minimum of like 3 damage. So if you double Arcane Blast, you can kill them. But cards, the Lorraine, you have to put in a little bit more damage, and then this is where this card helps. Wind Rider Invoker, You remove enlightenment counters, it gets +3 and it does a little bit of chunk damage. So you got the other attacks that are doing 1 damage chip. This can do 4, pushes a bit more damage. And another card that helps us push damage, Ascent Protector, also can intercept. We can bounce it back to our hand. We've got a lot of things. So pairing this with Zephyr's Assistant. Zephyr's Assistant enters, enlightenment counter, play Ascent Protector, bounces a Zephyr Assistant back to you. You get that additional enlightenment counter and you get Protector on the field. It's a win list, so we're obviously playing Veiling Breeze. When I can get it up on screen. This keeps you in the game, especially against fellow Rise, the Lorraines, their big attacks. It's a 4 of. This is a predominantly wind list, so you can get these Veiling Breezes pretty high. Fairy Whispers is great in this deck. You really want to craft and respond to what your opponent's doing. Do you need defensive cards like Veiling Breeze, or do you want to try push a bit more damage? Do you need a level, etc. A new card from FTC, Innovate Agility. The ability to go from level 2 to level 1, level 3 to level 2 seems like a negative, but what this card does is pretty important. You either gain stealth or spell shield. So if they're coming with a big attack, well, now I have stealth. If you're versing another Rai and they're coming with a big fireball, I now have spell shield. This has fast, so I can get around them. Obviously, if they play multiple fireballs, you're gonna have to be on top of that. But this card allows you to play around big attacks, regardless of if it's physical or non-attack. So an excellent card. Another new card that we got in FTC displays. I love it. Banish target ally, return it to the field. It can be yours, can be your opponent's, but you also get an enlightenment counter. So it just keeps fueling what you're trying to do for enlightenment counters. So your enlightenment counters to draw, enlightenment counters to double spells. Zephyr, essentially just suppress, which suppresses banishing. Has more play because it can be used on Regalia. And then you just so you've got a lot of just interruption in this deck. You displace cards, you banish, you Zephyr cards. There's a lot of bouncing in. You can be your allies, can be their allies, depending on what is needed. And that's I guess the skill issue of this deck. Learning when to bounce your own stuff and when to bounce your opponents. So it does require a few reps, but once you get in this, it is a nightmare to verse, but it is very fun to play. Disorientating Winds returns a target ally to owner's hand and you draw a card. Sometimes it's your ally, sometimes it's theirs. Sometimes it could be a dungeon guide. You got that dungeon guide, what you want, you bring it back to your hand, so you know you've got a resource, and then you draw a card. This also has efficiency, so sometimes this can cost you 1, can cost you 2, depending on what level you are. And you get resources back in hand, so it's good. And it's a mage spell, so all these spells are mage spells. They're adding refinement counters to Ventus, so that's why you're trying to get this out as soon as possible, is you really want to get the maximum value out of this card, which is like the MVP of the deck. And the last card is Ravaging Tempest. Now this banishes all allies, doesn't bring them back. For each ally banished this way, its controller draws the card. It's a fast spell, so if you have Type of Proclamation out, which limits the opponent to draw 3 cards, once they draw a card for turn, if at minimum they have 3 creatures out, they're only going to draw 2 cards. Now if they have drawn an additional card in their turn, which most decks can, especially if they're playing a Ascension build and then they build a board, if you're Ravaging Tempest, they're going to banish all their allies and not draw anything. Excellent into like the Wind Merlins that are coming out, or Wind Rains that like bounce Ascension a bunch of times and then put all their humans out to win. You come out with a Ravaging Tempest, they've drawn more than 3 cards for the turn, they're gone and they're not getting cards back in hand. So this is an excellent card for those matchups. In terms of the sideboard, we've got Morgan, essentially if you're playing decks that are trying to heal, you bring out Morgan. We have Nullifying Lantern because Erupting and Rending Flame still exist, especially with some of the new cards in FTC, like Honed by Fire, which gives swords and attacks +2. You can get Rending Flames a lot sooner, and you can get Erupting Rhapsody a lot sooner, so you just need your Nullifying Lantern. We have Safeguard Amulet that comes in for Rai, but also your Luxem Xanders, because they can do their instances of damage, so you just bring it in for those matchups. It's just good if you don't see your Veiling Breezes that you have an option in your material deck. The Azure Protective Trinket, again for those fire decks. If they get rid of your Nullifying Lantern, you can then bring this out, banish some of their fire cards, and try to reduce the damage. The Viridian Protective Trinket, note that this has been errata. This doesn't get banished. This is static. There's on the whole time. If you're versing water decks, they're trying to play on your turn. You're now taxing them, so you're making their attempts to slow you down or disrupt you. You're weakening that. So it's definitely a sideboard card that I'm putting in a lot of decks because I am expecting a lot more water, and it's something I would consider if you're playing that. And then the last card, Orb of Choking Fumes. So Orb of Choking Fumes, your opponent's attack turn costs 1 more to activate. Cast bonus you don't get, but you're taxing your opponent if you need to, and it just depends what decks you're running into. You can this in and out. So like I said at the start of the video, I'm gonna try get one more deck guide out. I'm pretty strapped for time because I'm doing a lot of testing for Ascent, because I'm flying out in 10 days to go on a holiday and then flying straight to Houston. So I will try to get one more video out. If I don't, I do apologize. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. If you want to talk to me, jump in Discord, Gazimus. I'm in the main Discord if you ever want to chat. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Speak to you guys soon. Cheers.